I'm going to play OpenTTD with some rather fiendish difficulty settings and graphics packs. So let's start by generating the map, and I like these settings. I find this generates sort of a rather pleasing map with a decent proportion of mountains and plains and kind of lakes and lagoons and oceans and the like. So this looks fairly decent. So what have I got in this game other than just an early start? Well, I should show you the graphics packs that I'm going to be using. So here we have FIRS 4, the most recent alpha, which introduces some difficulties because FIRS 4 has the cargo payment rates. If I just show you sort of, these are passengers and mail, which are kind of standard OpenTTD cargoes. And then if I start looking at the cargo which is available early game in FIRS, like sort of coal and limestone, iron ore, the payment rates are very low. And then with the sort of early vehicles, which are quite slow and can't sort of carry much, it's very, very hard to reach profitability with these kind of sort of tech level 1 cargoes. So that's going to add one challenge. And the usual way around this, and the sort of way that I'd advise if you were starting a game with just FIRS and normal settings, is you should use passengers. You should build sort of some town centre bus networks. So let's go look at a town. And this is like, I'm going to show you something which in a normal game would be like a perfectly viable way of starting, which is to find sort of the largest town. And this is like if you watch the AIs, and I have a couple of AIs enabled in this game. This is what the AI will do. It'll say, well, this town's got decent population. Here's Dundee. You know, this is quite a large sort of city for the start of a game, and you would set up sort of a bus network in there. And that would be fine, except for one problem, which is that I've got improved town layouts as well. And improved town layouts reduces the population of early houses. So rather than Dundee being kind of sprawling with sort of 1,500 or 2,000 residents, it's actually only got 250, which means that the passenger generation is going to be quite low. You see, maximum, if we covered the whole town, would be just 31. So we're not going to make a huge amount of profit from this. And this brings us to a challenge, really, with these. So obviously, as you see, there's the vehicle sets and things. Those don't introduce too much difficulty, though both my sets they're kind of a little more difficult than the standard OpenTTD, so it adds a bit more difficulty there. We don't have a huge loan available either. We've only got the standard 100,000 available here. And the thing is, so if you built sort of a stagecoach network through this, you might be able to make kind of, after you've got your infrastructure costs and things like that, maybe about £1,000 to £1,200 of profit. But here is the problem, which is you have some fixed costs. You have two major fixed costs in OpenTTD, which is you have a background cost of £300 per year, which you pay no matter what, and that stops you winning the game by just repaying your loan instantly and just sitting there to the end of all time. And there's also, at 4% interest, every £10,000 of loan we have also costs us £400. So to build a bus network, we're probably paying back sort of £400 worth of loan just to run that. And so the profits become very, very small. And this so obviously the way that kind of FIRS is balanced is as you get a larger network, you start to get into these sort of secondary cargoes like sort of pig iron and what else, I don't know, plastics. Plastics are very good, which have very high incomes. And if we had a large loan, we could probably sort of, I guess, kind of tech up quite early, and we'd be able to sort of have a pig iron cargo line running. But obviously with 100,000, we probably can't. We probably won't be able to get enough chains connected for that to work before we run out of money, and then we're left with a network that's not very profitable. But there's one way round this with the Steeltown economy that I'm using, which is engineering supplies. Now, engineering supplies is a kind of tech level free cargo. You need to have made some sort of proper iron or some sort of secondary cargo, and then you need to take it to some sort of machine shop, and eventually you might get engineering supplies out. except for a couple of special industries which FIRS have, which is the wharf and bulk terminal. And these exist to effectively to import sort of cargo types into the game that you don't naturally have buildings for. And particularly the wharf produces engineering supplies. And it produces engineering supplies naturally, not a huge number of them. So if we were sort of starting a game with, you know, later on, sort of 1950s start or whatever, this wouldn't be that helpful. 96 crates of engineering supplies. That's not enough to do anything. But early on, our vehicles have very, very low capacities. That's sort of our open wagon. 12 tons of coal, our flat wagon, sort of 18 crates of farm supplies. And this suddenly becomes a viable strategy. So if I were to go to the wharf and sort of display the chain, I'm going to just take the engineering supplies chain now. And that's, there we go. This is Blue Ate engineering supplies. So I'm going to link that to small map. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a wharf which has a nearby industry. In fact, this one by Windermere already has a sort of a nearby industry which we could use, which is, what do we have? We have a limestone mine. It produces 200 tons of limestone, 200 tons of limestone. And then, so if we were playing a normal game, that would be a fine and profitable cargo. But in this early game, we don't have anything that can really take it in volume or distance. But what we can do, what we can start is to take plateway. So, you know, we don't even have good railway here. We only have this sort of 25 mile an hour plateway. And what we can do is we can build a sort of a short line from here to here. And I'm not going to be too precious with this. I'm just sort of keen to set it, destroy some trees. We're not near a town or anything, so you don't have to worry about the fact that local authorities will not like you destroying trees. And so I'm just going to build this. I'm going to set up a couple of passing places. These diagonals are quite good things to put passing places in. And just a signal either end. Signals are relatively expensive in terms of running costs, so you want to avoid too many. And then I'm going to set up a train for carrying these supplies. And there's 96 a month. So if I set up there's a train one here, train one of horses, and there's about 54 crates. That probably is about right. And I'm going to triple stack my horses. And there's already 2 horses per stack. So, and why am I going to do that? Why does that make sense? Well, the reason that makes sense, I'm just going to refit this to engineering supplies, 54 crates, is with these low-powered vehicles. They have a top speed. These horses can get to 18 miles per hour, obviously quite fast. But if you only attach 2 of them to a train, the train will be heavy enough that they never reach their full performance. And for a cargo like engineering supplies, where there's quite a quick drop off, you lose a lot of money from not having the extra speed. Far more, in fact, than the running cost over a year if they're adding more horses. So actually the correct thing to do is, while not being a complete horse maniac, you still want to put a decent number of horses on this. So let's set this up. And while I'm here, another thing that can run into you is using Timberwolf's trains is the author of this, whoever wrote this set, is obviously quite a nasty piece of work, because as these things get older, their running costs start to increase. This sort of a mechanic that you'll find to Transport Fever and games like that. And with the horses, that can very, very quickly tip you over from making a decent sort of small amount of money into actual terminal loss. So what we need to do is to mark when these were built, so that we know that when this is coming up to sort of 10 years old, we need to replace it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to give these horses a name. Look at that bright horse there. I know it's sort of supposed to be a kind of chestnutty colour, but it's almost bright pink. I'm going to call this horse Luminous Bob. And Luminous Bob was born in 1815. So we know when we look at the list here that these horses need to be cruelly thrown out and replaced when they get to kind of about 10 years old. So I'm going to do that. And I'm just going to create a group to organize them. And I'm going to add an extra set of horses. This is not going to be Luminous Bob 2. So now I've set an awkward precedent, which is I need to name my horses. And so this one is going to become, I think, let's have Turbulent Martha. That's a good name for a horse. You know, excellent name for a horse. I think, so there we go. So I've set up this little sort of industrial line. It's not cost me a huge amount, and this is a thing with these early vehicles is nothing costs very much at this stage. But you also notice nothing carries very much. So I'm going to just put that in as well and set another set of horses going. And you'll see this was the point that I made about sort of triple stacking my stacks of horses, is that these are now down to 15 miles an hour. So already this journey is taking rather a while. And in fact, we'll see if we go look at the timetabling screen, this should tell us roughly how long this takes. So 55 days. So I don't want the operating profit graph. I want the cargo payment rates. So if I take my engineering supplies at sort of 55 days, we're in here. So we're still in the kind of the relatively acceptable region where the decay is not too fast. So this is probably good in terms of profitability. I probably don't need to sort of quad stack horses and start creating a monstrous train which is more horse than cargo. So there we go. So that's now running nicely enough. We probably could put another set of horses on that. So what we want to do is just kind of keep increasing this until we effectively have saturated it with trains. I've got 2 clones of Turbulent Martha, so I should name my horses. Oh dear. Well, what should we name a horse? Let's name it Additional Arthur. It's built in 1815 as well. This is bad. This is going to be horrendously so slow. If every time I have to do this, I have to name a horse. And I'm going to call this Patient Terence. I caught it waiting. So there we go. I'm going to have 4 horses on this. So I'm going to just sort of let that run for a bit and then see where we go with these. So what I want to do is just to add horses until one of 2 things happens, really, which is one of which is that I now always have something loading here, which looks like it's a little bit of distance away, or that my network, such as it is completely, totally saturated. So I'm going to add more passing places to kind of stave that off. If I show you, so apparently we're green co, so somewhat odd. I think we're blue, so I'm going to make that a bit more accurate with blue and co. There we go. And colour scheme has a sort of white accent to it as well. That will look very smart when we start painting vehicles. You can't really paint horses. I believe there's sort of animal cruelty laws and things which stop you doing that. And these are totally accurately modelled in game. So anyway, there we go. We have blue and co. But what I came in here for was to find our infrastructure costs. And this stuff is not too expensive, but you already see with the plateway and signals, like even with 6 signals and just kind of 112 bits of plateway, we are already paying quite a lot just to run our network. Just to have this network costs us a fair amount. So we do want to be quite cautious and make sure that all of these things are actually being quite profitable, that we're not kind of throwing money away. So let's let these look like they're doing better, but this is not too bad. So let's say our entire network currently, which is just this one line, costs us $750 a year. This horse makes us $2,100 a year. So this is probably fairly decent, and we're kind of getting relatively close to a point at which we can start what was I going to say with this? We're getting close to a point at which we can start building maybe another line somewhere. And what I am going to do is, in fact, this station could be smaller. So I'm going to set this up, and this may take a little bit of joggling. There we go. That horse will have to be joggled. Why is it waiting for a free path? Because it's waiting for a horse to come through in this direction, I believe. Let's see how this resolves itself. So we are already running into the limitations of this little network that we've built. So let's add a couple more passing places. Luminous Bob is lost. That's not gone well. I think that's just Luminous Bob struggling to find a route. So you do have to be careful with this when you're sort of moving around and building signals. Sometimes it's quite easy to accidentally cause quite a large collision. And I'm going to just move my depot around because that's a 90-degree turn, which none of the horses will be able to make. So there we go. And let's have another horse. Let's call this one. What should we call it? Let's call it Ambitious Gertie. There we go. 1815. Again, I'm only naming these really so that I have a listing here of I know which ones are sort of when they were built without having to go into the details. So each of these horses is not doing too bad. So if we consider that in terms of what costs I have to cover with this line for this company to survive long term, I'm now up to £1,000 a year, just in the infrastructure cost of the plateway. So, and I also have a loan. I still have 100,000 as my loan. So that we need an extra signal there because otherwise that will just block there. So my loan will cost me about 4,000 a year. My infrastructure will cost me 1,000. I'll have my extra sort of cost of 300, so 6,000. So 3 horses, and I'm basically now covering the costs of my company. So the rest is, as they would say, gravy. Although it's not really horse gravy, it's functioning horses pulling trains. And so that gives me sort of a decent start really in this game. And you can see there the operating profit is pretty good. And you know these horses, this isn't even the full year yet. These, even by October, are covering my costs. So what I am suffering from is the fact that I have such congestion here with free path. And these are not figuring things out very well. So what I am going to do is just clean up this network a little bit. I'm going to get rid of this here and hope nothing else sort of comes down there too soon. And I'm going to just build the network, and even this early on, because this is partly an artifact because these are quite low powered vehicles and you don't have very many of them. Or no, the opposite, sorry, but you have a lot of them. You don't you aren't able to get away with sort of just having one train. Like later in the game, this would be potentially just 2 class 20s would run this on a single line with a single passing place. But with the horses, we need a lot of them, and it takes a lot of time. This, and there we go. That's now got its free path. That's actually going to be able to run and move onwards. So we're still waiting for engineering supplies here. So I'm going to clone this again and just put signals. So we end up needing actually quite an involved network, even early on with this, which does start to drive up our costs. But as long as we can keep that network kind of being used nice and densely, this will be fine. We'll stay ahead of the sort of the cost of our loan and the cost of our infrastructure and all of the rest, and it will be fine. But these little passing places, these 2 signal passing places, you'll see here with path signals that this path clears, even though there's no signal up in this section, because the horses are just reserving this path. Now, speaking of horses, I think I have some more horses to name. I'm just going to call this horse. This is going to be Paul the Paradox, which is my last horse of 1815. Or is it? No, we're still seeing this. We're not even close to saturating this. So I'm going to add another couple of horses on this. And then let's call this. He's going to be Garsdale Gary. And I'm going to call this, let's call it 1815. And this is going to be Garsdale Greta. There we go. And also 1815. Well, I did say the last one. These should be the last of my 1815 horses. So I'm going to let those go. And we're still not really saturating this. I mean, the rating of this can still improve, which will improve the amount of cargo that we bring out of this. So we actually are already at the point where we probably need to consider this being double tracked. And this means that my signalling is probably a little bit too scattergun at this point, but let's let that sort of balance itself out. So, and there we go. Let's also set this up. So, remove the signal from there. This is an excellent way to cause crashes, by the way, to doing this kind of live editing of the track network. Unsurprisingly, as you would expect, sort of tearing up tracks and suddenly rebuilding them causes navigational problems. And quite often you will end up with things like the horse will reserve a signal block that then becomes a different signal block because you've gone building stuff. And there we go. So don't do what I'm doing in terms of how you build your network. You see, our network wasn't ambitious enough. We needed far more horses than we thought. But now this is starting to build up nicely, and hopefully with these efficiency gains, we can see now that this is starting to keep up. So that, I think, that's been a good start to our game. We definitely seeing some decent profits early on. We have something that we can offer as a solid foundation, and we've only spent half our loan, so we can come back next time and we can go build something else. But I will leave that there because I want this Let's Play to be sort of nice, kind of bite size, I guess. I mean, like little nuggets of OpenTTD that you can binge on if you want to watch lots, but you don't have to sort of sit there and listen to me witter on for an hour if you just want a quick fix. So I shall leave that there. I shall see you next time when we will look to extend our network.